we have to remember that um, we're having to define a legal system that's operating. You're not operating something that is in truth. You're operating in a system that's based on fiction. It is well, I'll loosely call it the law of lawyers, but they profess lies. They're fictionalists. So they deny the remedy that the debt has been canceled by the highest authority, which is God, and they have you operating in a system of debt. Now, it's complete fraud, absolutely nothing more than fraud, which would be for all those who have been born after the event of the birth and death of Jesus Christ, who canceled all the debt according to Colossians 2:13-15. In fact, the New American Standard says that that upon his death he canceled out the certificate of debt. It was something that was written against us, not for us, and therefore it canceled it, took it out of the way. Therefore, it is canceled. Uniquely in a legal society, we tend to carry suretyship for a judgment that says that the debt has been canceled, yet at the same time we surety a version of all the debt, that we will pay for all the debt. This works good for those who are the perpetrators of this fraud, this legal system. They are the same people that lead back to the ancestors of those who actually were setting up Jesus Christ. They are the Pharisees. They were those that were part of the Sanhedrin that actually made a false trial and a false judgment on Christ, and then basically accused him of sedition against Caesar, even though he clearly made the good confession that his kingdom was spiritual, it was not of the world or the temporal world. It was of the highest level of existence coming from the Creator. Unfortunately, he was brought in at that moment in the circumstance into being accused by evil for something that he had no guilt of. And therefore he was able to wipe out the guilt because he was innocent. And when they executed him, even though they had stated in the judgment, through the governor, Pontius, who said, that basically I find no fault or blemish or spot with this man, they continued to go ahead. There was no error in Christ. He had not sinned, and he was without sin, and they were trying to bring him into sin and into sedition against a fictitious legal world of the Romans. So we have enough evidence here to understand that what's really happening in the birth registration system is a miscarriage of justice, and therefore they are judging someone as basically in error, but at the same time, a child can never be brought into, duty, debt, or obligation. So therefore, there's a lot of problems in this fraudulent inducement that occurs on the birth record. But at the same time, what really is happening is the judgment basically is nothing more than a fraudulent judgment, an ambiguous judgment, and therefore they're hoping that someone without knowledge of truth will follow through with a miscarriage of justice, and therefore surety a miscarriage of justice, and then walk upon that and say there is the ability for man to perfect himself. When we go into the definition of abortion in Noah Webster's 1828, it clearly gives you some very good definitions to let you understand really what the meaning of the word is, and why it would make sense in today's world, because everything in a dead body corporate would promote death and promote murder and promote the taking away of life, because Satan was taking away the life of all the offspring of Adam and Eve based on them committing treason with him, and therefore Christ came in as a remedy based on a prophecy that said that the seed of the woman, who was forgiven in the Genesis account, would actually crush and put a death blow on the head of the serpent, and therefore put him out of existence. So when we look here in the word abortion, it says the act of miscarrying or producing young before the natural time or before the fetus is perfectly formed. But notice the word here, it has in its Latin etymology a miscarriage. Well, you're miscarrying a debt that you don't need to carry. And if you're carrying a title that says you're a debtor, then that would be a miscarriage of justice based on the event of Jesus Christ and the fact that he canceled all debt out. So the legal system operates contrary to the truth, and it works on a fiction which operates a debt that does not exist. And the system that you're surrounded with right now is quite worried that a population of people will start smelling this error, this evil, and realize that something's not right. And that there's no possible way a child could be born into debt. So where did all this debt come from if it's nothing more than an illusion or a deception? And of course, fiction could be nothing more than a deception, because that is what legal means. It is a fiction. It has nothing to do with God's law. It is opposite to free grace. And so therefore legal would mislead you and then basically get you to surety something that has been adjudged against you before you had the time to consent, and then deduce from your actions that you are willing to surety a false judgment that was made against you based on nothing more than a gossip and an error that was placed there by the parents, the informants, who themselves did not know. And therefore this is completely nothing more than a fraud, and it's a bad bargain, and you have the ability to accept truth. And only truth will bring you through this or set you free. But certainly not if you're energizing in the world of the deceived, as we've seen on today's press, with those that are there to abort even the concept of life, because they're there to say they have the ability and they basically the authority to actually murder, when that is definitely not something that would be in our conscience or our moral, our moral gift from God that was placed in every rational individual that has been birthed. So unfortunately, we live in a very deceived society. But what a complex level of what we've read here, just on what we've gone through. It's not uncanny that the world of legal would promote the concept of death more so than that of life. And therefore, welcome to the definition and the controversy over the word abortion.